It was a hot summer day in the small town of Riverdale. The sun was bright in the sky, making the black pavement of the parking lot feel like a frying pan. Outside the Lucky Mart store, people came and went. They bought cold drinks and ice cream to beat the heat. In the corner of the parking lot sat a small brown dog. It had short legs, floppy ears, and eyes that seemed to smile. The dog was waiting patiently, sitting next to a bike rack. It had a worn blue collar, but no leash. Every now and then, the dog would look at the store door, as if waiting for someone to come out. Most people who passed by would smile at the dog. Some would even stop to give it a quick pat on the head. The dog would wag its tail happily at the attention. It wasn't causing any trouble, just sitting there, being a good boy. Around noon, a group of 5 bikers rode into the parking lot. Their motorcycles were loud, making children cover their ears as they passed. The bikers parked in a row near the store entrance, taking up more space than they needed. They wore leather vests with patches and had long beards. People moved out of their way as they walked toward the store. The biggest biker was named Dex. He had tattoos covering his arms and a scar across his cheek. As they walked past the small dog, Dex stopped and looked down at it. The dog wagged its tail, thinking it might get another friendly pat. But Dex's face showed no kindness. "Look at this mutt," Dex said to his friends. "Sitting here like it owns the place." His friends laughed. One of them, a skinny man with a red bandana, spoke up. "Maybe it's waiting for its owner." "Well, it's in my way," Dex replied, even though the dog was nowhere near the path to the store. The bikers went inside, and for a few minutes, things were peaceful again. The dog continued to wait, occasionally looking around at the people passing by. An old woman gave it a piece of her sandwich, which it ate gratefully. When the bikers came out of the store, they had bags of beer and snacks. Most of them went straight to their motorcycles, but Dex stopped again by the dog. This time, he had a mean look in his eyes. The dog, still thinking humans were friends, wagged its tail again. "This mutt is still here," Dex said loudly. Then, without warning, he nudged the dog with his heavy boot. The dog yelped in surprise and pain. A few people nearby turned to look. A young mother pulled her child closer to her. A teenage boy stopped with his skateboard under his arm. Nobody said anything. "What's wrong, dog? Don't like that." Dex laughed and pushed the dog again, harder this time. The dog tried to move away, but Dex followed it. His friends were watching now, some laughing along with him, others looking uncomfortable but not stopping him. The dog backed up against the wall of the store, having nowhere else to go. Its tail was no longer wagging. Its eyes showed fear. "Hey, leave it alone," someone finally called out. It was an older man unloading groceries into his car. But when Dex turned to look at him, the man quickly looked away and continued putting bags in his trunk. Dex turned back to the dog with a grin. "See, nobody cares about you, mutt." He pulled his foot back, ready to give the dog a real kick this time. The dog cowered, making itself as small as possible. People in the parking lot were watching now. Some had their phones out, recording but not helping. A small crowd had formed at a safe distance. They all knew what was about to happen, but nobody stepped forward to stop it. And that's when the store door opened again. The store door swung open with a soft ding. The people in the parking lot turned to look. A man stepped outside, holding a bottle of water in one hand and car keys in the other. He wasn't very tall, but he had strong arms and a confident walk. His head was shaved, and he wore a plain black t-shirt with jeans. Anyone who watched action movies would know him right away. It was Jason Statham, the famous movie star. Statham stopped just outside the door. He was about to walk to his car when he heard the dog's scared whimper. His eyes moved quickly to the scene by the wall. When he saw the big biker standing over the small dog, his face changed. His mouth became a hard line. His eyes narrowed. He put his water bottle down on a nearby bench and started walking toward Dex. The crowd whispered as they realized who he was. Is that really him? What's Jason Statham doing here? Oh man, that biker is in trouble now. Dex didn't notice Statham coming. He was too busy laughing with his friends. Watch this, he said, pulling his foot back again to kick the dog. I wouldn't do that if I were you, said a deep voice with a British accent. Dex turned around, annoyed that someone was telling him what to do. But when he saw who it was, his face changed. His mouth opened a little, and he took a small step back. That's my dog, Statham said. His voice wasn't loud, but everyone in the parking lot could hear him. The words were simple, but the way he said them made it clear he was angry. The dog, seeing Statham, suddenly perked up. Its tail started wagging again, and it barked once, as if saying hello to a friend. It tried to run to Statham, but Dex was still in the way. Your dog, Dex said, trying to sound tough. But his voice shook a little. It was just sitting here. No leash or nothing. How was I supposed to know? Statham took another step closer. Does that give you the right to hurt it? Dex looked at his friends for help, but they had backed away. They didn't want to get involved now that they knew who they were dealing with. Dex was on his own. I was just having a bit of fun, Dex said, his voice getting higher. No harm done. A woman in the crowd spoke up. He kicked the dog twice. I saw it all. Other people nodded. Someone else added, he was about to do it again when you came out. Statham looked at these people for a moment, then back at Dex. So you think hurting small animals is fun? He took another step forward. Now he was just a few feet away from Dex. Even though Dex was bigger, he seemed to shrink under Statham's stare. Look, man, I didn't know it was your dog, Dex said, now clearly nervous. If I'd known it belonged to someone like you. Someone like me. Statham cut him off. What difference does that make? It shouldn't matter whose dog it is. You don't hurt animals. Period. The dog had managed to slip past Dex and was now at Statham's feet, looking up at him with relief. Statham didn't bend down to pet it yet. He kept his eyes on Dex. You know who I am? Statham asked. Dex nodded quickly. Yeah, sure. You're Jason Statham. I've seen your movies. Then you know what happens to the bad guys in my movies, right? Dex swallowed hard. Everyone in the parking lot was silent, watching the scene unfold. The air felt tense, like right before a storm hits. They don't usually have a good day, Dex said, his face now pale under his tan. Statham nodded slowly. That's right. And right now, mate, you're the bad guy in this story. Dex tried to laugh, but it came out more like a nervous cough. Come on, man. It was just a joke. The dog looks fine. He pointed at the small dog that now sat safely next to Statham's leg. Statham finally bent down and gently checked the dog for injuries. The dog licked his hand, happy to see him. After making sure the dog was okay, Statham stood up again. His eyes were cold as he looked at Dex. A joke. You think hurting something smaller than you is funny? Statham took another step forward. Dex took another step back, almost tripping over his own feet. By now, many people had their phones out. They were recording everything. Some were even live-streaming the whole thing. In the background, Dex's biker friends watched from a safe distance, not willing to help their friend. Listen, I'm sorry, okay, Dex said, raising his hands in front of him. I didn't mean any harm. But you did harm, Statham said. You kicked a dog that was just sitting there, minding its own business. Why would you do that? Dex had no good answer. He just shrugged, looking more uncomfortable by the second. Statham looked Dex up and down, taking in the biker's leather vest with its many patches. You think those patches make you tough. You think hurting animals makes you a man. Statham shook his head. Where I come from, that makes you a coward. Someone in the crowd said, Tell him, Jason. Others nodded their agreement. Dex's face turned red with shame. Sweat ran down his forehead, even though he was now standing in the shade. He looked around for help, but found none. Even the store clerk had come outside to watch. "I have a question for you," Statham said. "Would you have done that if I had been standing here? If you had known the dog belonged to me?" "No, of course not," Dex said quickly. "And that's the problem, isn't it?" Statham said. "You only pick on those who can't fight back. The small, the weak, the ones with no voice." He pointed at Dex's chest. "That's not strength. That's weakness." The dog sat quietly by Statham's side, as if it understood every word. Its eyes moved between Statham and Dex, watching the humans talk. "What do you want me to do?" Dex asked, his voice small now. "I said I was sorry." "Sorry isn't always enough," Statham replied. "Actions have consequences." The crowd grew silent. Everyone wondered what Statham would do next. Would he hit Dex? Would he call the police? The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Then Statham did something surprising. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said. "I'm not like you. I don't hurt those weaker than me." Dex let out a sigh of relief. But Statham continued, "I am going to make sure everyone knows what you did." He held up his phone. "Smile for the camera, mate." Dex's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. Statham was taking his picture. "No, wait," Dex started to say, raising his hand to block his face. "Too late," Statham said, putting his phone away. "Your face and what you did will be online in an hour. The internet never forgets." Dex's shoulders slumped. In today's world, this kind of shame could follow him forever. "Now," Statham said, his voice a little softer, "I'm going to take my dog and leave. But before I go, I want you to think about something." He paused, making sure Dex was listening. "Next time you want to hurt something smaller than you, remember this moment. Remember how it feels to be powerless. Because that's how that dog felt when you were kicking it." The parking lot was completely silent now. Everyone was hanging on Statham's every word. Dex stood there, frozen by Statham's words. For the first time in his life, he seemed to be thinking about his actions. The big, tough biker suddenly looked very small. One of Dex's friends, the one with the red bandana, finally stepped forward. "Come on, Dex, let's just go," he said, pulling on Dex's arm. But Statham wasn't done yet. "Hold on," he said. "I want to hear what he has to say." He looked directly at Dex. "Well, have you learned anything?" Dex looked down at the ground, then at the small dog, and finally back at Statham. I won't do it again," he mumbled. "Louder," Statham said, "so everyone can hear you." Dex cleared his throat. "I won't do it again," he said, his voice clearer this time. "I was wrong." Statham nodded slowly. "Good. Now there's one more thing you need to do." He pointed at the dog. "Apologize to him." Some people in the crowd chuckled. Dex looked confused. "To the dog. But it's just a what?" Statham cut him off. "Just a living being that feels pain. Just a loyal friend who never did anything to hurt you." His voice grew stern again. "Apologize." Dex looked around at all the people watching. His face was red with embarrassment. But then, to everyone's surprise, he got down on one knee so he was at eye level with the dog. I'm sorry, dog," he said awkwardly. The dog tilted its head, looking at Dex with curious eyes. Statham bent down and gently picked up his dog. He held it close, scratching behind its ears. "His name is Max," he said, "and he's a better judge of character than most humans." Max the dog looked at Dex from the safety of Statham's arms. Then, to everyone's surprise, the dog gave a small wag of its tail, as if accepting the apology. "Looks like Max is willing to forgive you," Statham said. "He's got a big heart, this one." He looked around at the crowd. "I think we're done here." People began to put their phones away, though many were already posting their videos online. Dex's friend pulled on his arm again, and this time Dex went along, heading back to their motorcycles. The other bikers followed, some of them giving Dex hard looks. It was clear that his status in the group had changed. As they were about to leave, Statham called out, "Hey." Dex turned around, looking worried about what might come next. "Next time you see a dog or any animal that needs help," Statham said, "be kind. It costs nothing, and it matters a lot." Dex nodded, then got on his motorcycle. The bikers started their engines and rode away, much quieter than when they had arrived. The crowd started to break up. A young boy, about 10 years old, came up to Statham with a notebook in his hand. "Mr. Statham, can I have your autograph?" he asked shyly. Statham smiled, the first real smile since he had come out of the store. "Sure, buddy," he said, shifting Max to one arm so he could sign the boy's notebook. "What's your name?" "Billy," the boy said. "I want to be in movies like you when I grow up." Statham handed the notebook back with his signature. "Just remember, Billy, the real heroes aren't the ones in movies. They're the ones who stand up for others when no one else will." Billy nodded, his eyes wide with admiration. "Is that why you stood up for Max?" "That's right," Statham said. "And you know what? Anyone can be that kind of hero. Even you." The boy smiled and ran back to his waiting mother, excited to show her the autograph. An older woman approached next. "Thank you for what you did," she said, "not just for the dog, but for showing everyone the right way to handle things. No violence, just dignity." Statham nodded his thanks, then turned to walk toward his car. Max settled comfortably in his arms, looking completely at peace now that he was safe with his owner. As Statham walked to his car with Max in his arms, a store worker ran up to him. The young man wore a blue vest with the Lucky Mart logo. "Mr. Statham," the worker said, a little out of breath. "The manager wants to know if you need anything. We're so sorry about what happened to your dog." Statham smiled. "We're fine, thanks. Max is tougher than he looks." He scratched Max behind the ears, and the dog licked his hand. "The manager says everything in the store is free for you today." The worker added, "Anything you want." Statham shook his head. "That's kind, but not needed. Just doing what anyone should do." He paused, then added, "Actually, you could help me with one thing." "Anything, sir," the worker said eagerly. "Do you have any dog treats in there?" Statham asked. "I think Max has earned something special today." The worker's face lit up. "Of course. I'll be right back." He ran back into the store. While waiting, Statham put Max down on the ground but kept him close. The dog stayed right by his side, looking up at him with trusting eyes. A few more people came by to thank Statham or to take quick pictures with him. He was polite to everyone, but his attention was mostly on Max. The store worker returned with a bag of premium dog treats and a new blue collar. "The manager said to give you these too," he said, handing everything to Statham. "The collar is our best one. It has a GPS tracker in it, so you'll always know where Max is." "That's very thoughtful," Statham said, taking the items. He opened the bag of treats and gave one to Max, who ate it happily. Then he looked at the new collar. "What do you think, Max? Ready for an upgrade?" Max wagged his tail as if saying yes. Statham carefully removed the old, worn collar and put on the new blue one. It fit perfectly. "Thanks again," Statham said to the worker, who beamed with pride before going back to the store. Just as Statham was about to get into his car with Max, a police car pulled into the parking lot. The officer inside had received calls about the incident. He got out of his car and walked over to Statham. "Mr. Statham, I'm Officer Wilson," the policeman said. "We got some calls about a man harassing a dog." "That your dog?" He pointed at Max. "Yes, this is Max," Statham replied. "And yes, there was an incident. A biker was kicking him." Officer Wilson took out a notepad. "Can you tell me what happened? We take animal abuse very seriously in this town." Statham explained everything while the officer took notes. He described Dex and his friends in detail. including their motorcycles. Several people recorded it, Statham added. I'm sure they'd be happy to share their videos if you need evidence. The officer nodded. I'd like to see those videos, and I'll need your contact information in case we press charges. Statham provided his phone number. I'll help any way I can. What happened today wasn't right. Officer Wilson bent down to pet Max, who sniffed his hand before allowing the pat. Good dog you've got here. Glad you showed up when you did. So am I, Statham said, though I don't usually leave him alone. Today was an exception. The officer stood up. Well, we'll look for those bikers. This isn't the first complaint we've had about that group, but it might be the last, now that we have solid evidence. Statham thanked the officer, then finally got into his car with Max. The small dog jumped into the passenger seat and sat down, looking out the window with interest. Quite a day we've had, Max? Statham said as he started the engine. Max barked once in agreement. As they drove away from the Lucky Mart, people waved goodbye. The story of what happened in that parking lot was already spreading through the town. By the next morning, the videos of what happened at the Lucky Mart were all over the internet. People had shared them thousands of times. News websites picked up the story with headlines like "Action Star Shows Real-Life Heroism" and "Jason Statham Stands Up for Dog Against Bully Biker." In his small apartment above the town's bookstore, Dex woke up to his phone buzzing nonstop. He had messages from people he hadn't talked to in years. Some were making fun of him. Others were angry. A few old friends even said they didn't want to know him anymore. Dex picked up his phone and saw his face on a news website. The picture showed him looking scared as he faced Statham. Under it was the headline, "Local biker shamed after kicking celebrity's dog." Dex threw his phone on the bed and put his hands over his face. He had never felt so ashamed in his life. For years, he had built up an image as a tough guy. Now, in just one day, that image was gone. His phone rang. It was his boss at the auto repair shop where he worked. Dex answered it with a sinking feeling in his stomach. "Dex, we need to talk," his boss said. "I've seen the videos. Half the town is called asking us to fire you." "Boss, I can explain," Dex started to say. "I don't want explanations," his boss cut him off. "What you did was wrong. But I've known you for 10 years. You're not a bad person, just someone who made a bad choice." Dex held his breath, waiting for what would come next. "I'm not going to fire you," his boss continued. "But you need to make this right, somehow. And you better not show up in your biker gear anymore. Just come to work, do your job, and go home. Got it?" "Yes, sir," Dex said, feeling both relieved and embarrassed. "Thank you." After hanging up, Dex sat on the edge of his bed for a long time. He thought about everything that had happened. He had always tried to look tough in front of his friends. But was that really who he wanted to be? Someone who hurt small animals to look big? He remembered Statham's words. "Next time you see a dog, or any animal that needs help, be kind. It costs nothing, and it matters a lot." Those words kept playing in his head. He had never thought much about kindness before. In his world, being tough was what mattered. But now he wondered if he had been wrong all along. Dex got up and looked out his window. Across the street was the town's animal shelter. He had passed it hundreds of times, but never paid attention to it. Now he looked at the sign that read "Volunteers Needed" and had a new thought. Meanwhile, at Statham's vacation home on the edge of town, things were much more peaceful. Statham sat on his porch with a cup of tea, watching Max play in the yard. The small dog ran around happily, exploring the grass and chasing butterflies. Statham's phone rang. It was his agent from Hollywood. "Jason, have you seen the news?" The agent asked excitedly. "You're trending everywhere. People love what you did for that dog. We're getting calls for interviews, movie offers, everything." Statham chuckled. "I'm not interested in interviews," he said. "I didn't do it for the attention." "But think about what this could do for your career," his agent insisted. "This kind of publicity is gold." "My career is fine." Statham replied calmly. I came here for a break, remember? To get away from all that. After hanging up, Statham called Max over. The dog came running and jumped into his lap. Statham rubbed Max's head, feeling the new blue collar around his neck. Just you and me, buddy, he said quietly. That's all we need. A week passed. The town of Riverdale was still talking about what had happened at the Lucky Mart. People would point to the spot in the parking lot and tell the story to visitors. The store even put up a small sign that read "Famous Dog Saving Spot" with a picture of a dog paw print. At the Riverdale Animal Shelter, the staff was busy with the morning feeding when the front door opened. A tall man in a plain work shirt and jeans walked in. He looked nervous, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. It took the shelter manager, Mrs. Wilson, a moment to recognize him without his leather vest and bandana. You're that biker, she said, her voice turning cold. The one who kicked that poor dog. Dex nodded, his eyes on the floor. Yes, ma'am. That was me. Mrs. Wilson crossed her arms. What do you want? We don't need any trouble here. I don't want to cause trouble, Dex said quietly. I want to help. Mrs. Wilson raised an eyebrow. Help? How? Dex finally looked up. I saw your sign about needing volunteers. I thought maybe I could. I don't know. Clean cages or walk dogs or something. Mrs. Wilson studied him carefully. Why would you want to do that? Last I heard, you were hurting dogs, not helping them. Dex's face turned red, but he didn't get angry. I know what I did was wrong. Really wrong. And I'm sorry. I've been thinking a lot this week, and I want to try to be better. Is this just because you got caught and shamed online? Mrs. Wilson asked directly. Dex thought for a moment. Maybe that's how it started, he admitted. But now I really do want to help. I've never had pets, never really been around animals much. Maybe that's part of why I did what I did. I didn't understand. Mrs. Wilson wasn't fully convinced, but something in Dex's honest answer made her pause. We don't usually take volunteers with your history, but everyone deserves a second chance, I suppose. She handed him a form. Fill this out. You'll start with the simplest jobs, cleaning cages and filling food bowls. You'll be watched at all times. Any sign of trouble, and you're out. Clear? Dex nodded eagerly. Yes, Mom. Crystal clear. Thank you. As Dex filled out the form, Mrs. Wilson went to the back room to make a call. Across town, Statham was enjoying a quiet breakfast when his phone rang. He answered it while giving Max a small piece of bacon under the table. Mr. Statham, this is Rachel Wilson from the Riverdale Animal Shelter, said the voice on the phone. How can I help you, Mrs. Wilson? Statham asked politely. You probably won't believe this, but that biker who was kicking your dog, he just showed up here asking to volunteer. Statham was surprised. Really? Do you think he means it? Hard to say, Mrs. Wilson replied. He seems sincere, but I wanted to check with you before I let him start. It's your dog he hurt, after all. Statham thought for a moment, looking down at Max, who was happily eating his bacon bit. What does your gut tell you? He asked. My gut says he's genuinely sorry and wants to change, Mrs. Wilson said. But I've been wrong before. I believe in second chances, Statham said after a pause. If you think he's sincere, give him a shot. Just keep an eye on him around the animals. We will, Mrs. Wilson promised. Thank you for understanding. After hanging up, Statham looked down at Max. What do you think, buddy? Should we go check on this biker's progress ourselves? Max barked once and wagged his tail as if saying yes. My thoughts exactly, Statham said with a smile. Let's give him a few days first. Then we'll pay a surprise visit to the shelter. 3 days later, Dex was at the animal shelter, cleaning out the dog kennels. His hands were sore, and his back hurt from bending over all day. But for the first time in years, he felt good about what he was doing. At first, the dogs had been afraid of him. They would back away when he came near their cages. But Dex was patient. He spoke softly to them and moved slowly. By the third day, some of the dogs were wagging their tails when they saw him. In the far corner of the shelter was a cage with a small brown dog. This dog never came to the front when people walked by. It stayed in the back, shaking with fear. Mrs. Wilson had told Dex that this dog had been rescued from a bad home where it was beaten. Now it didn't trust humans anymore. Dex felt a strange connection to this scared dog. He spent extra time near its cage, just sitting quietly and talking softly. He didn't try to touch the dog or force it to come to him. He just wanted it to know he was there. "Hey there, little one," Dex said gently as he put fresh food in the dog's bowl. "It's okay. No one's going to hurt you here." The dog watched him from the back of the cage with sad eyes. Mrs. Wilson noticed Dex's special attention to this dog. "That's Rocky," she said. "He's been here for 6 months. No one wants to adopt him because he's so scared of everything." "What will happen to him?" Dex asked. Mrs. Wilson sighed. "We'll keep trying to find him a home. But it's hard to place dogs with fear issues." Dex nodded, looking at Rocky with concern. "Can I spend some extra time with him after my shift?" "If you want," Mrs. Wilson said, surprised by the request. "Just be careful. He might bite if he feels cornered." After finishing his regular duties, Dex sat on the floor outside Rocky's cage. He didn't talk much now, just sat there quietly. After about 20 minutes, something amazing happened. Rocky took a few steps forward, watching Dex carefully. "That's it," Dex whispered, not moving. "I'm not going to hurt you, buddy." Rocky took a few more steps, then stopped, still watching Dex. At that moment, the shelter door opened. Dex didn't look up, not wanting to scare Rocky back into his corner. But then he heard a familiar British accent. "How's it going here?" Dex turned to see Jason Statham standing there with Max on a leash. Dex quickly stood up, nervous about facing Statham again. "Mr. Statham," he said, "I didn't expect to see you here." Statham looked around the shelter, then back at Dex. "Mrs. Wilson tells me you've been working hard." Dex nodded. "Yes, sir. I've been trying to make up for what I did." Max sniffed the air, pulling on his leash toward Rocky's cage. Statham let Max approach, and the small dog looked at Rocky with interest. Rocky backed up a little but kept his eyes on Max. "That's Rocky," Dex explained. "He's afraid of everyone. He was abused before coming here." Statham knelt down, letting Max get closer to Rocky's cage. "Looks like Max wants to say hello." The three of them watched as Max wagged his tail at Rocky. Slowly, very slowly, Rocky came forward again. The two dogs sniffed each other through the cage bars. "Well, look at that," Mrs. Wilson said, coming up behind them. "Rocky never approaches the cage when visitors are here." Statham looked at Dex with new respect. "You've been working with him." Dex nodded, just sitting with him, letting him know not all humans are bad. He paused, then added quietly, "I guess I needed to learn that lesson myself." Statham studied Dex for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He held out his hand to Dex. "Maybe we both misjudged each other," he said. Dex looked at Statham's outstretched hand with surprise. He hesitated for a moment, then reached out and shook it. "Thank you," Dex said, his voice a little shaky, "for giving me a chance to show I can change." Statham nodded. "Everyone deserves a second chance if they truly want to do better." Mrs. Wilson smiled at the two men. "Well, this is a nice surprise. I never thought I'd see you two shaking hands after what happened." Max and Rocky were still sniffing each other through the cage bars. Rocky had come all the way to the front now, his tail giving a tiny wag. "He likes Max," Statham observed. "First time I've seen him show interest in anyone." "May I?" Statham asked Mrs. Wilson, pointing to Rocky's cage. "You want to go inside?" she asked, surprised. He might back away again. "Let's see," Statham said. "Max seems to be making friends with him." Mrs. Wilson unlocked Rocky's cage, and Statham entered slowly with Max. As expected, Rocky backed up a little, but kept his eyes on Max. The small terrier approached Rocky gently, wagging his tail in a friendly way. After a minute, Rocky sniffed Max, then looked up at Statham. Statham knelt down and held out his hand, palm up, letting Rocky decide whether to come closer. "You're doing great, buddy," Dex said softly from outside the cage. "He's a friend, just like Max." To everyone's amazement, Rocky took a few steps towards Statham and sniffed his hand. Then, very slowly, Rocky let Statham touch his head. It was just a brief touch, but it was huge progress. "I think these two have a connection," Statham said, watching Max and Rocky together. "Max could use a friend at my place. It gets lonely for him when I'm working." Mrs. Wilson's eyes widened. "Are you saying you want to adopt Rocky?" "I think Max has already decided that," Statham said, as the two dogs sat side by side now. Dex watched with a mix of happiness and sadness. He was glad Rocky would have a good home, but he had grown attached to the frightened dog. "You'll take good care of him?" Dex asked, then quickly added, "Of course you will." "Sorry." Statham looked at Dex thoughtfully. "You know, I'm going back to filming next month. I'll need someone to check on the dogs daily while I'm gone. My housekeeper comes in the morning, but the dogs would be alone all afternoon." Dex straightened up. "I could do that. I'd be happy to help." "It's paid work," Statham added, "if you're interested." "Yes, sir. Very interested," Dex said quickly. Then he paused. "But why would you trust me, after what I did?" Statham looked at Rocky, who was now lying down next to Max. "Because you helped him when no one else could. That tells me all I need to know about who you really are." A month later, the town of Riverdale had mostly forgotten about the incident at the Lucky Mart. New stories had taken its place, but the changes it brought remained. Dex still worked at the auto shop, but he had given up his biker vest. Every afternoon, he went to Statham's house to check on Max and Rocky. The dogs would run to the door when they heard his truck pull up. Rocky was still shy around strangers, but with Dex, he was playful and happy. Statham had gone back to Hollywood for his new movie, but he called often to check on the dogs and chat with Dex. They had developed an unusual friendship, built on second chances, and shared love for two special dogs. One sunny afternoon, as Dex played fetch with Max and Rocky in Statham's backyard, he thought about how much his life had changed in just a few weeks. From a man who would kick a dog to show off, to someone who found joy in caring for animals. From being feared to being trusted. As the dogs ran back to him with the ball, tails wagging and eyes bright, Dex smiled. Sometimes the worst moments in life could lead to the best changes, if you were brave enough to learn from them.